As you probably just heard, a recording is in progress. Welcome to the Circle of Life Coalition monthly meeting and seminar, in which we like to bring information to the community and healthcare workers related to anything that has to do with quality of life and end of life issues. Hopefully you will find things educational and things that you can pass on, and encourage folks to watch the recording that will show up on Facebook and our website. Before we start everything today, this is our June celebration, and we take an opportunity to honor someone who's been special to the coalition for a long time. The person that I'm speaking about is Melissa Eberhardt. She definitely embodies the vision of an informed community open to honest conversations about life and death, one in which we inspire each other to live life fully while acknowledging the inevitability of death, sometimes the hardest part, and where choices for end-of-life care are effectively communicated, documented, respected, and honored. Do you want to come up, Melissa? Yes. Melissa has been part of this organization for lots of years. She's so young, lots of years. And this award really represents her friendship to the coalition, countless volunteer hours. You can't even add all those up. Constantly speaking about end-of-life issues and how much they mean to folks for planning, phone calls, marketing, so many other things I can't even, not to mention friendship. And she's the one who roped most of us, or a lot of us, and me especially, into Circle of Life Coalition, a roping I keep on because it's been such a joy. So, Melissa, please say a few words and accept this award.
Thank you.
As a token of our appreciation for those hours and continued hours that you will share.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I was telling my friends and family about this award, and I was telling them about how I kind of found out about it. And the first part was a little bit of like shock and denial. We were on the board meeting, and I hadn't been on for a little while, so they were just going through the normal things that they go through, and I was taking my notes, and they got to the recognition program, our award, and Deb said something like, "Is Melissa Eberhardt still on the call?" And I was like, "Why is she singling me out like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm here." And she was like, "Oh, well, you won the award." And I was like, "Yes, thank you." It was just kind of like unexpected. And then my second thought was Elizabeth Hannum. So I immediately pulled out my phone and texted her, and I was like, "I can't believe you knew about this and you did not say a word to me." And it was like one of those angry emoji faces that I sent to her. And she randomly texted back something like, "Ha ha ha," like I was going to tell you. so that's how I found out about it. But I'm grateful to be a part of this group. It's such a diversified group. As Deb was saying, as far as the education goes, I'm on different groups and different committees. And a lot of them are more focused on networking. You go to it, you see a lot of the same networking type of people, and they incorporate education, but not like the Circle of Life does. The Circle of Life really focuses on quality education, and that's their main goals beyond the networking and meeting everybody. And some of the people that you see here today, you won't see at some of the other groups. So that's great as well. And I've just grown to love everybody here. I got started with Gary at Griswold, who kind of nicely pushed me into it, as part of, he did, as part of marketing. So, he gave me the opportunity to just spend as much time as I needed. And I'm also thankful for my current position for allowing me to continue to be with everybody here. And thank you to my fellow board members and advisory board members for nominating me. I'm very honored to receive the award. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, lots of opportunities on the Circle of Life Coalition. We're a relaxed board, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn, volunteer, simple things, complex things, whatever you may be interested in, so please reach out. We also would like to thank today Manor at Market Square. Unfortunately, the person who was going to speak cannot today because COVID's still here. as you are all aware. So he perhaps will present at a different time, but Manor Market Square is a fine community of affordable living situations in which you can have independent living and some assisted living, some minor assisted living. But you can go to their website, manormarketsquare.com, and look that up. We thank them for their sponsor of this program. Sponsorships support our insurances and other things to keep a nonprofit running, as well as some of the rental of this room and some of the refreshments that you see. Today we have macaroons and some mini cupcakes just in honor of Melissa and our celebration. Good deal. All right. So why you guys tuned in wasn't to hear us talk about the Circle of Life Coalition. It was to hear about how to change some challenging experience of dementia into positive interactions. And I'm going to let our speakers introduce themselves, if you don't mind, because my Microsoft isn't loading. Another glitch. And they are going to give us a fine presentation, hopefully without any glitches. Please remember to keep yourself muted. I will be over by the computer doing some comments, taking some questions. We will provide for those at the end of the presentation so that our speakers can definitively answer those. They are handing out something that we can make sure you have, if you wish, a little handout as they go on. So without further ado, thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Shawn. I'm the Executive Director at Chestnut Knoll Personal Care in Boyertown. I've been there for 22 years. I came with the place when we opened, and my specialty is working with folks with who are living with dementia. I actually designed the memory care neighborhood at Chestnut Knoll, and prior to that, I worked at a skilled nursing facility managing memory care neighborhoods. My background is social work, so I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'll let Jennelle Jamison introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Jennelle Jamison. I'm the Resident Care Director at Chestnut Knoll. I have been at Chestnut Knoll for 10 years, not as long as Shawn has been there. I started out as the Memory Care Director, was promoted after 3 years to Resident Care Director, and my background is more in activities, dementia. I am also a certified coach with Teepa Snow and a trained the trainer with Teepa Snow.
Great. So we just want to talk briefly with you today a little bit about having quality interactions with folks who are living with dementia, because really their brains are affected and changing, and how they react to things may not always be completely within their control. So it's more so on the caregiver to look at our approach, and the way we approach people living with dementia will affect ultimately how the interaction goes and ultimately their quality of life. So I want to take you through just a little journey. In the 60s, we started with something called reality orientation. And basically reality orientation is meant to do just that, is to bring people gently back into our reality, reminding them of the date, reminding them of the time, reminding them of the season. And I'm told that the old school of thinking from some of the nurses that I've worked with was that if someone was confused, if you told them the right information enough times, sooner or later it would get through their head. You know, if you walked into a nursing home, there's always those boards, today is Sunday. But through the years, we've noticed that the science has told us that their forgetfulness cannot be fixed in some instances. There's actually things changing in their brain. And so sometimes telling people our reality over and over again is very disturbing and can be catastrophic, upsetting. So there are some examples where reality orientation is still okay. An example I can give is I walked into Chestnut Knoll one day, and a friend of mine who lives there, Catherine, was sitting in the vestibule. It was a Saturday, and she was sitting there all dressed to the nines. And I said, "Oh, Catherine, great. Going somewhere today?" She said, "Yes. My family's picking me up for church." It was Saturday at 9 o'clock. I said, "Oh, You go to St. John's, right across, yep, I remember St. John's. Yeah, it's such a great church. I think probably you're going to church tomorrow on Sunday. She goes, oh, isn't it Sunday? So no, it's Saturday. Oh, good heavens. I get my days mixed up all the time. I said, that's okay. The good news is you look great today, but you're not going to church till tomorrow. So Catherine and I laughed it off. And so I brought her back into our reality, but it wasn't harmful. So with that said, am I teed up we're going to show you a short little video clip. It's 8 minutes long. It's called Looking for Yesterday.
Give him chloroform. Please help.
This is a frightening reality. People aged 80 to 101 who used to be productive sit day after day feeling alone and useless. For many, this life is intolerable. Yet they live longer. They fill our nursing homes.
Oh, my God, I won't come to a place like this.
This woman is 101.
You wouldn't come here? No, and I've been here, but... You've been here before, you didn't like it. Okay. Oh, help me. Help me.
All righty.
Help me.
Here we go.
You go to the devil at 1 Oh! Oh!
Sweetie! Oh, come down. Be a good girl. Look at all the people you're bothering. Be a good girl. Here, take this pill. Take this pill. It'll calm you down. Here, take this pill. Mrs. Kessler, we're going to reality orientation. Don't you want to go to reality orientation?
For 5 years, we emphasized the present and did not realize that many severely disoriented aged cannot face this reality. We patronize people instead of listening to them.
I don't want to know.
I think we're going to have to change her before she goes to reality orientation. She really smells bad.
Oh,
Mrs. Kessler, they're going to change you. Mrs. Kessler, be a good girl. Calm down. We're going to change you before you go to class. Okay?
Sit down.
Mrs. Kessler. Mrs. Kessler, we're going to find out what day it is today.
I'm looking for yesterday.
You're looking for yesterday?
Yeah, I'm looking for yesterday.
In this scene, you will see why our repeated emphasis on reality was premature and did not work.
Where you are right now. And isn't that important?
What?
Where you are?
I don't know.
That we are all living in a home where you go when you get older and you don't have your own home anymore. What is wrong? You're just older and you're living in a home and it's a beautiful day. It's going to be spring soon. And everything's going to be just lovely because the flowers are coming out and the buds are coming out.
Don't give me all that crap.
But it's going to be springing, Mrs. Ward.
I want to know what happened to my mother and dad. That's all I want to know.
Why don't you get that? What happened? Your mother and dad passed away, Mrs. Ward. Your mother and dad just passed away. And that happens when you get older.
Not always. Oh, my mother still, thank God, is better than a lot of young people. That's one.
Now,
reality is different. When is the funeral set for? So I have nothing to complain about that.
Faye, we have to talk about reality.
Faye.
That should we get Mrs. Kessler? Mrs. Kessler, you're going to fall if you keep walking. It's important to know that our parents have passed away.
Most of her pets, they have her tie her shoelaces.
Both of them have passed away. Both of your parents, Mrs. Ward. And it's going to be a lovely day today, so we don't want to think about all that.
You don't, huh? Oh, I do. They were my parents, not yours.
Don't you want to think about the nice things about living here, and that it's spring, you know, it's almost March, and the flowers are going to bud, and that we're all going to be here, living here, in this home where you live when you're older.
Is that going to apply to us?
Yes.
I'm going to get out.
What do you want, Mrs. Kessler?
I wanna go home.
But you can't go home. You're in a home for older people. You don't have your own home anymore.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Funny way to... Why don't you give it to us straight?
No, it didn't feel that way.
Why don't you give it to us straight? Tell me. Is my mother and dad both gone?
Your mother and dad are both gone. They're both gone.
So you won't have to worry about them.
So you won't have to worry about them. Mrs. Kessler, I'm going to tie you up so you don't have to fall. Because you may trip over that. There's a chair.
Not adapted to that new neighborhood.
Well, we're not living in a neighborhood. We're in a home for older people where you go when you're older.
Oh, I know it, but a lot of times people that are old can live longer than a lot of young people. You said it.
And spring is coming.
Smile a little bit, will you? Smile a little bit when you say that.
Whoa!
Lamppost.
Oh!
You won't tell me what's going on. I have to know.
I wouldn't say a word if I fall. I fall the roses.
I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Please don't do that. Don't do
Get
that.
out of here. I think it's a waste of time. You're making it a waste of time. There's nothing to gain aside.
I think we should end our meeting now, don't you?
Yes, I do too. Very much.
It wasn't a very good meeting, was it? What did you say, Mrs. Firth?
I think the whole thing was crazy.
So that made me agitated. Anyone else agitated?
Yes.
And that was really what used to happen. So it's very disturbing, and I'm so thankful that we've learned a lot and have come a long way. Yeah, so that's harsh reality orientation. So we're gonna skip ahead, and we just have one more short video. This one is called Challenging Behaviors. This one is skipping into the Teepa Snow, where we join them where they are, and we have positive interactions to still meet the same end goal.
Challenging behaviors, that's how we see it. They're misbehaving. They have problem behaviors. We've got to do something about this. Now, I'm going to call a timeout right now because the biggest problem we have right here is you've already identified the source of the behavior. You're pretty sure it's them and what they're doing. Timeout. You need to take a step back and realize this is much more complicated than you think. And instead of being such a strong judge and jumping to conclusions, what I want you to do is back off and reframe this. I want you to realize that they're doing the very best they can to try to communicate with you, to meet a need, to express that they aren't liking what you're doing. And unfortunately, you simply see it as not getting your way. What you don't realize is that you started this very frequently in your effort to be helpful. Let me just say to you, you weren't as helpful as you thought you were. I didn't really enjoy the help you gave me. I didn't get it. So you have a choice right now. Are you going to continue to push your agenda to try to get where you want? Or can you take that step back and go, okay, well, this isn't working. Let me rethink. So what you want to do when you experience a behavior you're not liking, you need to, whoa, take that step back. Take a deep breath, let it go, and realize now it's time to kick in the front of your brain and to become a really good detective. Try to figure out what might be driving what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, and what they're feeling. What maybe you're smelling and they're not picking up on, what they're tasting versus what you would be tasting. Because what you want to do is realize that you need to see it from their side. And once you see it from their side, you try to be in their shoes, figure this out. Suddenly, when you see things, hear things, experience things differently, and you make that choice, that decision to do that, the uh-oh becomes an aha, because you can start to realize it's the setting, it's the care, it's the gem. It's who they were before this all started. There's lots of pieces to the puzzle. Your job, if you want to do this well and do this over the course of this condition, is to stop the judgment, time yourself out, and reframe this behavior. Go from a challenging and frustrating, I just don't understand why she's doing this, to pausing for yourself, getting some help, maybe getting somebody else to take a look with you, because maybe you just can't see it because of who you are and how it works. But what you're going to do is take that step back, look more broadly, and at that point, make a decision. What are they trying to do? Are they communicating an unmet physical need? There's basically 5 of them you want to learn about. Or an unmet emotional need. Or are you seeing the emotional need, but you're missing the physical need? Or was it something that is happening in the environment or happened earlier today? As I said, complicated. So you need some training. You need to know what's going on and what's not going on so you can quit sitting in judgment and start using this. That's the best tool. That and your ability to bring people together to help you. So with challenging behaviors, it's not about them, it's about us and what we choose to do about this effort to communicate an unmet need and helping us figure out what is the need and how can we better meet it for success for both of us. Making a positive difference because we choose positive approach to the care. Now remember this lady? What do you think she's doing? You see her beating on the chairs, making noise, annoying people, and you know she needs to go to the bathroom. It's been a long time. You've tried to make her stop, but she won't. What if I told you she used to clean houses for a living? I'm going to try substitution and a positive approach rather than trying to make her quit. Miss Leona. Well, hey there.
Get your hand.
Get my hand out the way. You're trying to get him clean. Here, try this. She's a busy woman.
There you go.
I'm going to try a substitution here.
I'll trade you.
Not yet. Show her.
Rub it with that. Can you rub it? Yeah. Here, rub
We're
it.
getting there.
Trade me. Wait. Trade me. Here you go. Take this. All right, get it. You got it. Now trade out. There you go.
Ta-da.
Now rub it.
Now I show her, and there she goes.
There we go.
People
Good.
are less annoyed, not so much noise. And she's
Beautiful.
cleaning. Now I want to reinforce it. That's good. That's good.
2 more to go.
But I still haven't met
You're doing a fantastic job.
her unmet need. One more substitution.
Nicely done, Leona.
She needs to get finished with this
Boy, you are good.
so we can move on.
You get this one?
Watch me, I'm sneaky.
That's it. Good. Good.
I visually eliminate the task.
Whoa. Woo! That is beautiful. You did a fantastic job. Man, you're a good cleaner. Here. Thank you. All right, well, come with me and we'll sit down and take a break.
Oh, good.
I know you're ready for one, aren't you?
Now, before she goes to sit down, though, we have a place to go.
Oh,
girl, you worked hard.
Oh, God.
You are one of the hardest working women I've ever met.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, Lord knows. Let's go to the ladies before we sit down, though.
Okay.
Okay. We changed the challenge to success.
So one of the challenges that we often face is when working with people, we all come in with our own agenda. And most of the times when you're a caregiver, whether you're a family member or a loved one caring for someone, or you are an employee working in a community or home care caring for someone, you have tasks and agenda that you have to get done. And we all come in with what we need to do with someone. We forget that our brains are functioning normally and their brains are not. So we come in and this is what we have to accomplish in this amount of time. We all have to stop and take a minute and remember that they need more time. They need more time to process. They need more time to complete a task. And when you come in hot and fast, which we all usually do because in today's world, we have a million tasks and 1 hour to complete them usually, you are running, never walking, and you are trying to accomplish the most that you can. So if you have an appointment to get somebody to and you need them to be ready by 9 a.m., you should probably be starting to get them up at 7, not at 8. You gotta give yourself time. Often you have the pushback from people because you're rushing. When you're working with someone who's living with dementia, it takes them 90 seconds to respond to a command that you're asking or a question. 90 seconds is a very, very long time. None of us wait 90 seconds for anyone to respond to anything. Typically what happens is we will say, hey, can you stand up? Let's get a shower. Come on, the water's running. And we change our sentence, we change our words every 2 minutes or every 2 seconds. We're changing what we're using, our phrasing. Every time we change our wording, the clock starts over. We don't use the same words. We talk way too much. And we don't stop talking. So we use way too many words as well. Oftentimes we come in and we touch someone before they know what we're doing. How many of you have ever walked up to somebody and gently touched their back without them knowing you were there? Has anyone ever done that? And most would think that's like kind of endearing, right? It's nice. You do the little back rub. If you don't know someone's approaching you, that can be very alarming and scary. And we wonder why you get the aggressive, oh, they hit me, they swung at me. Well, you startled them. Or if you move somebody's wheelchair and they didn't know you were coming, it's because they didn't see you first. So you always have to make sure you're giving verbal and visual cues. People need to see you, hear you before you can touch them. And those are all important things with positive approach. You need to be aware of space when you're working with someone, your public space, personal space, and intimate space, which people don't always think about, I don't think. All interactions should start out in public space. You should be talking to someone before you're even in personal space. Hey, Tom, how you doing? As I'm coming across the room to greet Tom. I should be trying to get his attention from 6 feet away. You can put your hand out to do an interaction with someone. If they put their hand out to shake your hand, you can come into their personal space. And that's a good way to make a connection with someone. Once you make that connection, you can start doing any kind of interaction and usually do some hands-on stuff. The other thing that we often do is understand that people will respond to the tone of your voice, the rhythm of your voice. So if you're a happy-go-lucky person and you're talking and you're smiling, the person living with dementia may not understand every word that you're saying, but they may be responding to your facial expressions, to the tone of your voice, the rhythm of your voice, and they may be smiling at you, they may be responding to you, and the next thing you know, you're telling them, we're gonna go get a shower. Sorry. That was the very first time I've ever been told that I saw a speaker. Usually I'm told that I have a very loud mouth. So sometimes, they're responding to you and you think the interaction is going to be great and everybody's on board with whatever you're going to do next. And you're telling someone you're going to give them a shower, you're going to bathe them. They're smiling, okay, yeah, they're in agreement. And next thing you know, you go to take off their shirt and you get the stop. You get somebody who's angry now, upset with you because they didn't really understand the words you were using. So sometimes it's good to use visual cues too, to show them. You want to make sure that you're remembering you have to try to change the way you think. And again, it comes back to our brains are functioning normally, theirs are not. And too many times people get upset with people who are living with dementia because as a caregiver, for the most part, in the early stages of living with dementia, you can't look at somebody necessarily who's living with dementia and say, oh my gosh, you have dementia. I can see it. Yeah, I can tell that you're sick with this. You have dementia. Most of the time you don't know, right? Someone who's living with dementia could look like any of us. It's hard. When we're doing training with the staff, I'll always say, reference the movie Beetlejuice. In that movie, Michael Keaton's sitting next to somebody and their head's shrinking. And I always say to the staff, if you ever see that movie, if dementia looks like that and someone's head actually would shrink the way the brain does, we could say, oh my gosh, you have a little head, you have dementia, I can see it. We would know. You can't always see it, so people don't always recognize it. So you might have a loved one who's, down at the drugstore, the grocery store, who's picking up things and putting them in their bag. And next thing you know, you're getting a call that, your wife or your loved one or mom is at the store stealing something. And it's not that she's stealing, she has dementia. She doesn't understand that these things don't belong to her. They don't always understand that we have to change how we think. And because their brain doesn't function well, you have to rethink how you're going to approach things with them. So be aware of that because you can't see dementia always. And it's frustrating as a caregiver because you can't always see it per se. You will often think sometimes and feel like people are doing it on purpose because someone doesn't look sick. And that can be hard as a caregiver. You wouldn't tell somebody who was, having cancer and going through treatments, stop doing that. You're doing that on purpose. Or if they had a kidney infection, you wouldn't go over and, pound on their back and say, get up and go to the bathroom. Come on now, you can do this. Those aren't things that you would do. You would recognize that there's truly an infection or a disease. And with dementia, it's frustrating because you can't always see that. So it's difficult as a caregiver. So you have to just change how you're thinking when you're working with someone who's living with dementia. And in reality, as a caregiver or a loved one, you are living with dementia because you are taking care of this person every day. And you need a village to help you. And that's probably one of the most important things that you can do is find your village and get them early because you can't do it alone. And get well-trained village, or at least people who have patience, because without that, it's very lonely and hard. I could talk about the gems too. I don't know all what you guys want to know. This is a very short time and we can't interact a lot because we're on Zoom and stuff. So it's hard for me to do the positive approach. Do you have any questions about positive approach? Does anyone want to see an actual positive approach? What it looks like a whole interaction? Okay, I'll do, or someone want to be my person, or I can go Shawn. Do you want to, anyone want to be Vanna? I'll do Shawn. Are you going to be living with dementia?
Am I on the?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
You are. So I have dementia.
You have dementia.
Yeah.
Hi, Shawn. Hi, Shawn. How are you?
Hi.
How are you doing today? You doing okay? Like your blue dress? Very pretty. You're very nice. I'm going to be heading down to get something to drink. You want to come with me? Maybe? You come on. Okay. This is called hand under hand. This is called hand under hand. This is an interaction that if you have a hand under hand interaction with someone, you can direct them and do things with them. It is also really good because if someone does become combative or have a behavior, you have control usually of their dominant hand at this point. So you're in a better situation. But when you, it would be like this, you can kind of direct them. It's kind of like a rudder. You can kind of move them around. But with this, I could help her brush her hair. So I can engage her. I could help her, assist her with her meal if she needed it. There are many things you can do with hand under hand. You can help someone use the bathroom this way with taking their pants down, brushing her teeth, things like that. It engages the resident or person so that they are engaged and involved throughout the activity. So it is less threatening because they know what to expect. One of the things that we do with staff with hand under hand is we'll literally have someone close their eyes. And I know this sounds silly, but if you can do this with someone you know, how it feels to have somebody do tasks for you is much different if you're engaged. So if you close your eyes and have somebody brush your hair or your clothing, like they're going to change you or help you with something, it's alarming and scary. If you're engaged in that with your hands, it's more comfortable. Try it with somebody sometimes. It's actually, interesting to see how it feels. Do the, have someone feed you. If someone is declining and needs help with meals, there's a big difference from someone actually feeding you to doing hand under handing and having someone assist you where you're engaged in the process. It makes it much more pleasant, if that makes sense. Also, if what we often discover too is if a resident is, or a person living with dementia is having a hard time eating and not responding well to someone feeding them and they're unable to do it themselves, when you use hand under hand, because it's a learned or a muscle memory for eating, you bring your hand up to your mouth, that when you engage their hand, their mouth will open because this is a muscle memory. We remember that when our hand comes up to our mouth, we're going to eat something or drink something. So 9 chances out of 10, they will open their mouth. Just like if someone's having a hard time swallowing something, you can do what's called a dry spoon or dry sip, where you just bring it up and you just touch. It will encourage them to swallow too, so that they can swallow things. So, any questions? Yes.
From the audience, actually, 2 people. One wonders how you handle somebody's delusion and aggressive behavior.
So aggressive behaviors would be, obviously you want to back off a little bit, as long as they're safe and not going to hurt themselves or someone else, step back, because that would be the first thing you would need to do is step back, because you don't want to endanger yourself or them. Sometimes if you try to de-escalate a situation, you put yourself and that person more in harm's way. So if you can step back and back off a little bit, that would be the first thing you should do. Depending on what the behavior is, for example, I had a gentleman one day who was legitimately had a walker and was swinging his walker out our door in the community. Full blown, it was like a baseball bat, and he was just swinging it. And the staff were trying to stop him. I said, stop. I said, back up. You're trying to grab the walker. You're trying to grab him. His balance is going to get thrown off. You're going to get hurt. I said, everyone back up. So he is just sat. I said, everybody back up. We kept everybody else away from him. There was a bench. I sat down on the bench next to him, and I said, you all right? And he's like, yep. And he just kept swinging. And the next thing you know, he looks at me and then came over and sat down. And I said, how you doing? He's like, I'm tired. I'm like, I bet you are. And I just I engaged, like I acknowledged he was doing something, but I sat and waited. And then he stopped and sat down. You can have things like that. You can have times where I've had someone banging on something and I've gone up and banged right next to them. If it's not going to bother anybody else, bang right next to them, see what their reaction is. We've had times where someone's been yelling and I've yelled right next to them or with them. It's kind of an attention getter, see what happens. it's matching where they are. Sometimes that will de-escalate and bring them down. Sometimes it won't. It's acknowledging them. Yes.
What about someone who sees things, including bugs?
Acknowledge what they're seeing. Don't tell them it's not there, because to them it's real, very real. You want to validate what they're seeing. Help them get through it. Acknowledge that, if it's a bug and it's a fear, and then of course you want to follow up with a physician, because it might be a medication related, an illness that we have to look at that's not related to their dementia that we can fix.
But I think the biggest thing, like Jennelle said, is you have to, again, join their reality. So I always say, as a social worker, I put myself in their shoes. So imagine if I was sitting in a chair and I thought there were bugs all over it. And all of you were like, you're crazy, there's no bugs. No, I see them. Look, so imagine I'm already feeling anxious about the bugs and I clearly see them. And now none of you people believe me.
That's when we get the fly swatter out, or the shoe, we take the shoe off and we start smashing bugs. So we meet them wherever they are. And I'll say, did we get them all? Did we get them? It's kind of like, when your kids say the boogeyman's under the bed and you look, pull them out, take them outside and throw them in the trash. Whatever you do, or the ghost under the bed, things, you validate their feelings and make them feel better.
And so, one of the things about dementia is it's so very hard on the family, because here's your mom thinking there's bugs that clearly there aren't, or here's your aunt that was the cleaning lady that is now banging a toy on a chair. So for family members, it's devastating. For those of us that is not our family, sometimes my family will say, I don't know how you work, they're so depressing. I say, no, we are joining them and meeting them for who they are now. And we're getting quality and time in the moment. So we're not losing the person. We didn't know her before, we know her now. And so working on memory care as a professional is actually fun, because, we get in there and you just join them, and every day is a new day and we just have fun and there's no judgment. Everyone just is who they are and in that moment, and we meet them where they are, we go with it. So some days are crazier than others. But yeah, it's definitely a mindset.
What's hard, I think, for caregivers and family members is your relationships are changing with the person who's living with dementia. And as a caregiver, if you're a husband or wife or child, your relationship, it's the same but different, because your role has changed slightly. If you're providing care and you're the daughter, you're no longer just the daughter, you're also a caregiver. So what you need to get done as a caregiver oftentimes will take precedence over what you do as a daughter. So it's very difficult to balance out a caregiver role to a relationship role when you're caring for someone with dementia, because the caregiver role takes over and consumes you, and that can become very, very difficult. So you are not only mourning the person, you're also mourning that relationship that you used to have, and that can be challenging in itself.
And what I like to say, what we've noticed is, the person still recognizes the relationship. And so sometimes they may not take directive from a family member. I am not getting in the shower. Who are you to tell me I need a shower? And then we'll walk in and we'll say, oh, what, while we're here, why don't we just help you with a few things? And they go right along with us. Now, not always, but there are times where the family member's like, I don't know how you accomplished that. I've been asking him for weeks. Well, but we're not his wife. Or sometimes a parent may say to the daughter, you're not telling me what to do. I'm the mom. So sometimes if we go to do an assessment, family members will say, I don't know, he's not going to let you in. And we knock on the door, smile, say hello. Next thing you know, we're sitting on the sofa. So, those relationships affect the caregiving sometimes. Sometimes they're very successful and sometimes they're just not. Any other questions?
Oh, you finished.
Good.
Oh, okay. No. Two observations as a former caregiver. First of all, professionals such as yourself are wonderful and essential. However, you go home at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
That's
and
correct.
if you're a caregiver, you're there continuously.
That's absolutely correct.
And one of the worst parts of the disease that I know of is as it progresses, the patient is increasingly unaware of what's going on. The caregiver can never forget it. As a matter of fact, you go through grieving every 3 months. And from the non-professional caregiver, that's a real challenge, which often ends up with the decision you need professional help because you can't do it yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, going back to sometimes when people say, how do you do it? Again, I get to go home at the end of the day. If someone's not cooperating for me, if we're just having a not so good interaction, I can just tap out and say, Jennelle, you got this
We
one.
tag team it, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, there are people that have better relationships, people can walk away, but when you're the caregiver, it's you.
And we've all been on the opposite side too. Like my grandfather was living with dementia, and I could tell my mom and dad everything that they should do and how they should do it with him. And then when I would walk in the house to help, everything I knew as a professional would fly right out the window. And I'd come back to work crying to her going, I know what I'm supposed to do, but he's my grandfather. It doesn't work. But it works with my residents. So it's very difficult when it's your own person. It is. And you do need that support. You need the village.
Along that line, Bob reminds me of the question, how do you help the family member where the client has told them to go away and don't ever come back? How do you deal with that situation?
So when they tell the worker to go away, or they tell the family
Tell
member?
the family member, I don't want to see you again, go away.
So a lot of times with dementia, the short-term memory is affected first. And so long-term memory stays intact generally. That's why we do a lot of reminiscing. So sometimes in the moment, people will get angry and say, get out of here, I hate you, or you're not doing this to me. So every day, we use the cognitive deficit to our benefit, and sometimes every day is a new day. So they might be very angry at you that moment and tell you to get away. We've already had our caregivers through our home care go to someone's house and they'll call and report, Mrs. Smith kicked me out. And depending on how Mrs. Smith is, we'll say, well, we know Mrs. Smith, just sit in your car for 5 or 10 minutes, knock on the door and say hello again. And Mrs. Smith's dementia was such that she didn't remember, she just kicked her out and she could enter right in. Sometimes, however, they don't always forget what we want them to forget. If there's a negative interaction with another resident, they still remember that because sometimes they remember the feelings associated with that person. They might not remember that they were just having a little tiff over coffee in the dining room, but they remember that person made them mad. They don't really like that person. So what I would say is I would tell the family members, which is very difficult, to not take it personally and to recognize it's the dementia and just keep trying different approaches. Maybe if they see someone and they have a negative feeling or they're still angry, bring a dog. Do they love animals? Bring a grandchild, bring a photo album, bring a distraction, because again, people with memory loss are easily distracted. So let's use that to our advantage and distract them. You're welcome.
A couple more, but a little related to the delusion. The bugs analogy was a good one to go with the flow, but what if it's you can't make the bugs go away, or it's something that's continuous as they're trying to manage medications and things? What might other things you try?
So one thing I want to say is we don't, advocate for medication first. Of course, we always want to try behavioral interventions and environmental interventions, moving things around, like how Teepa hid the chair. So we always try to start with the simple things. If there's some kind of behavior happening, if there's something we can physically change in the environment, move. 2 people are arguing over a bench. My mother bought that bench, so you shouldn't sit on my bench. What do? When they're not there, we move the bench. The bench is not an issue anymore. You have to look at your approach, are you arguing about the bugs or are you trying to get rid of the bugs? But sometimes there are just things going on in their brain that they do need some medication for. Sometimes there's just some paranoia, some delusions, sometimes there's some depression. So we work with a geriatric psychiatrist who comes to our community who finds sometimes that balance. And again, we're not advocating to over-medicate people. Sometimes I say a little dab will do you. Sometimes just a little bit really increases the quality of life. So sometimes when there's delusions like that, you have to go the medical route and look for things that can be done medically for sure.
So the other thing too, in addition to that, is look at where they are and what's around them that's causing the delusion. As simple as we got new carpet at Chestnut Knoll. It's beautiful carpet, but when we first put it in, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like the ground's moving because I felt it was busy. And for a little while, the memory care residents did a little bit of stepping because it looked like it was moving. And I'm like, so look around because there might be things that in your environment, like if it's in a certain room that they see things, maybe it's something in that room that can be changed.
And the news, gosh, the news.
Don't put the news on.
We watch a lot of Lawrence Welk and, the black and white. Yeah, but the news is just, there's so many bad things on the news that trigger so many negative memories.
And then that becomes the reality of it might be happening right here. So.
Lawrence Welk triggers a lot of negative memories.
So just to expand upon that, we have a specific for the question is, Dad thinks Mom is a man in a house and a stranger in his house. He fears the man and has threatened his wife, the mom.
So that can often happen because as we age in life, we all change how we look. So he may not recognize her as his wife anymore because he might be looking for his younger wife. So maybe get photo albums and put out that she can reminisce with him and say, oh, I know your wife. Here's this, let's talk about and do like reminiscence of the family and see if that brings him back and things like that. But we've had that happen. Have him checked for UTI if he hasn't been. We did have one resident who she used to think her husband was a stranger in the house, and usually every time that happened, she had a UTI.
A UTI is a urinary tract infection for anybody who might not know, but maybe some sort of an infection or a virus. As far as the threatening, if she feels in danger, you certainly do need to remove yourself from the situation as long as he's safe. Call 911 if you don't feel safe, or the trusted person who's going to help de-escalate the situation.
And just one more thing, I don't have it with me today, but you can, the Alzheimer's Association is a valuable resource. So they have a website, you can Google it. I think it's alzheimers.org. But anyway, there's a 1-800 number available, and we have magnets back at our community. You can put them on your refrigerator, and you can call that 1-800 number 24/7, and you will get a trained professional on the other end of the phone. So like in this instance, if they're having troubles in the middle of the night, that caregiver could call that phone number and a trained professional will answer the phone and talk them through what to do next.
Just one more. I know we're a little over, but I took a lot of time in the beginning. Okay, actually there's two more. Any suggestions for a person with dementia who's driving? I've heard this so many times. I can't remember directions nor where they are. Doctor won't take the license away. Family who have legal decision, is estranged. So I have some thoughts, but you're the experts there.
So I would recommend, I'm not sure why the doctor won't question why the doctor
one thing
won't.
I'd like to say is I did run into an experience. We're in Boyertown, so it's a small town, and we have some residents who have known their doctors forever, lifelong relationships, and sometimes the physician might not see the dementia. The person, they interact with the person for 5-10 minutes. The person answers all the questions correctly. Are you eating? Yes. Are you bathing? Yes. Do you have any problems with this? Nope, nope, all good, all good. And meanwhile, the caregiver's like, are you kidding me? They're not eating, they're not cooking, they're not bathing. So sometimes the doctors might miss it, but they're really mandated to report if they think there's a problem, but that doesn't mean they can't miss it. So there are programs out there. I believe Encompass still does a driving program. There are
No.
no, they don't do that anymore.
There's one in Allentown that they can go to. That's where we had to recently send one of our residents there. If they could do a driving test up in Allentown. Encompass doesn't do it. There's one in Allentown that does. They can do a driver's course there. You can also do Dr. Gary Champlin does
The Office of Aging.
maybe Office of Aging. They can do a competency test to see if someone's competent or not, and then he could recommend someone go for their driver's test, because I think that's how we got the
Yeah.
resident that we did.
My first suggestion is the keys are lost. Oh my gosh, where are those keys? Oh no, yeah, pull the battery, if they get the keys, pull it out, give them a fake key. Those are just many things, but as far as the rest of that goes.
And those things all work if they're not mechanically inclined.
Yes, you get a mechanic that can hotwire.
Yeah, then you have.
I had a client who we pulled the battery, he called AAA and got a new
Yes.
battery.
I always say dementia doesn't make you stupid. You don't lose your IQ. You lose your judgment and your safety. But it doesn't make you dumb, right?
Right. So just,
I was just gonna say, we've already had somebody's car moved to a different place, and we just told them that their granddaughter needed the car for the time being. Because they loved that granddaughter, they were perfectly fine with it, essentially.
right, yeah, whatever distraction you can. So honestly, one last thing, I want to get to everyone. So Lori asked, am I understanding correctly, it's more helpful to the person with dementia for us to just agree their perceived reality versus the truth? My loved one thinks that a new man is flirting and interested in her, and she is delighted. In fact, this was a family friend for 40 years. I found out he passed away last September and haven't told her he passed. I feel that though I'm keeping the truth from her, what real purpose would be gained by telling her he passed? Is this a helpful practice on my part?
I think if it's not going to hurt her. It's not going to hurt her to keep that truth from her. If it's not going to hurt her, then I wouldn't. There's no benefit to tell her the truth right now. So I think that you're fine. Let her think that that's going on.
I have no idea what that is. It's not on Zoom. Okay.
No, that's facility.
This is, yeah. Key loss thing. Okay, they got it. All right. Thank you, everyone who's been here, put up with our little glitches. I did put their email addresses within the chat. This will be recorded and posted on the website.
Which is gone.
With the glitches gone. Always very important in editing. And we definitely thank our presenters. This is very valuable information that we like to bring up from time to time. So any other topics? Cool. But thank you again. Next month, we will be talking about Reiki. That will be interesting with some Zoom participants, but I think we can do it. If you feel inclined to donate, you can go to our donate button on the website at circleoflifecoalition.org, or if you shop on Amazon, you can use Amazon Smile and pick us as your charity of choice. There are thousands, you may pick another, but we like if you pick ours. And again, thank you for coming and being here. And again, congratulations to Melissa Everhart, who continues to provide great opportunities and excitement to our coalition. Thank you.